Welcome to the live broadcasting for Best for the World. I'm joined today by Anja Müller from a great initiative that is called think.dk. Um, Welcome, Anja, first of all. It's a pleasure to have you with me.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting.
Um, can you give us a description of what is this think.dk actually?
hmm Yes, I would try to keep it short. It's actually best to easiest to understand when you just come and experience it.
Mhm.
But we try to boil down the description to something that we can say in an elevator or in an interview. So we call it a Center for Acceleration of Change. So it's a community space. It's a physical space in the north of Copenhagen that's about 200 square meters big, where people can come together to start projects together, to join events, or to use any of the services that we offer. And all of that is oriented around a holistic approach to sustainability. So we don't only encourage people to take action related to environmental or ecological sustainability, but also social sustainability, cultural sustainability. We are very inclusive. We welcome all kinds of age groups or backgrounds at our center. So we have a kind of a change maker community, about 200 members, shrinking right now due to the bigger circumstances. But the idea is really to encourage people to experiment and to try out things. So it's a non-profit initiative. We are very stubborn about not compromising the vision or the purpose of the space, um, in favor of generating monetary income. But yeah, we prefer to yeah, not think about the money, even though of course you cannot really prevent that when you have to pay rent. But it's not a reasoning in terms of what projects we initiate or what events we host or so. So there is a very strong focus on really encouraging people to experiment and try out new things, because we think that's important, that people have a platform where they can where they don't have to take a financial risk, like renting a room and hoping that then so many people will come so they can cover the cost of that. So you can get a membership, which is 100 kronas a month, and then you can use the space to host workshops or movie screenings or whatever you feel like experimenting with. That is the most visible part, I think, the event. So we have an event calendar on homepage where we, until the middle of March, had around 30 events a month, so almost one event per day. And now we're working on moving some of that online. But yeah, I guess we'll talk about that later.
Mhm. Yeah, I just wanted to summarize a bit what you're saying because I mean, I
Mhm.
understand that sometimes it can be really complex to describe what you're actually doing. But as you
Yes.
said, think.dk is actually a physical meeting place, first of all, in Copenhagen. Um,
Mhm.
and I have been also hosting sessions there, so I can only recommend a place. It's really lovely. And there is a variety of events that you actually host, um, which is not hosted by you directly, but you provide basically the space for
Mhm.
co-creation. So people can come, as you said, from many different backgrounds,
Mhm.
test and experiment with different concepts. It's kind of similar to actually what we are doing right now on a virtual basis,
Yes.
inviting people to providing them the space, and they can host their own concepts here.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
s- so, and I have been also to different concept. Can you give us maybe an example of various or some of the concepts that have been hosted there, so people can get an idea? Um,
Yes. Yeah, of course. I mean, we have some events that are but not unique to Think. I would say, like we hosting women's sharing circles or men groups. We have a few event series that we still host ourselves as Think, which is documentary screenings, for example, once a month, or a Friday bar that is, focused not on hanging out and doing small talk and being like superficial, but really it's called Friday Bar Big Talk because people really tend to talk about essential, complex topics very fast without us, trying to moderate it or anything. It's just it just happened naturally. That's why we called it that. We have some very experimental events, for example, around the systemic constellation concept, where we experiment with setting up abstract concepts like the upper 1% or change makers, or think itself in a room with volunteers and see how they feel about each other, what draws them to which other position or to what other part of the picture almost. So the constellations, there's deep constellations around different topics, but also personal constellations, because it's also a concept, pretty popular concept from the therapeutical realm, where people try to heal their family backgrounds and so on. So we do have some events also that are focused on inward sustainability almost. So, self-care and personal well-being. For many change makers, I think that is very essential, that they also find a balance between going outwards and trying to save the world and being an activist. And many of them forget to maintain their energy somehow. So we also have quite a selection in the self-development event realm, or what you want to call it. I think one of my favorite event series that really grew out of Think, in terms of different members meeting there and realizing they have a common interest and expertise, is actually the meetup that you started together with Frederick, the Holonization, around the future of work, and how can we help organizations to implement this new paradigm into their workplace, because it was when you started that, that was shortly after I read the book from Frederick Laloux, Reinventing Organizations, for the first time, and it was so inspiring that there is a new form of company or organization on their way that is much more humanistic, or allows a bigger part of the person to show up to the workplace and bring their own talents and passions in, which was for me personally really a struggle when I finished my studies and I wanted to find a job and do something meaningful. And that's like, first of all, it's a challenge to even find a job where you get paid for something like that, but then it's also, you have that job description and you have to do these tasks, and there's no leeway to bring to the table what really your whole capacity is or interests are. So yeah, that was one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
But
That's
then,
really nice to hear.
I can go on and on because we had so many events. Maybe the best method to get an impression of the variety is to go to our homepage and look at the calendar. We can also scroll back to past months to see what has been. We made an attempt after the first year or so to deduct some categories from whatever emerged, just to make it easier for people to grab the broadness of the spectrum. So we had this, education, technology, environment, and so on. But then, many events fit in more than one category, and then there some events didn't fit in any. And it's like we're trying to stay out of a box really with Think, because we want to stay accessible for everyone, and we want everyone to feel welcome and to have some relevant content for all kinds of people to offer. So we don't want to end up being that self-development center or yoga center or that open source coding place or whatever. So we really also make an active effort to encourage people. For example, the technology part was not really happening for some time. So we really tried out to reach people who want to host something in that area to keep the balance between the different areas. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the best way actually to experience really think.dk is to go and visit the place, meet the people there, attend some of the events, and see for yourself what it is, what it means for you. And I think, as you said, can sometimes be quite challenging to describe actually and categorize the concepts. I know we like to do these things to make life easier and simple for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, just go there, experience for yourself how this place affects you, and what you would like to do with this, and maybe what experiments you would like to run.
Yeah.
Um,
And also maybe just as an addition, what think is first of all, it's also changing because it's ever emerging. The concept was very open from the beginning. So it depends a lot on who comes on board and says, okay, I want to co-create something here. I want to bring in some of my skills, or I want to, help you realize this or that project, because we have an endless list of projects that we would love to do. But the core team, that's only 3 people. And we are mostly busy with the administration of the ends. And sometimes, oh yeah, we can squeeze in a project here or there, but it's mostly then the people who really come there who make things happen. Yes.
Can you describe with your or what from your perspective why this place is so relevant in these times?
Hmm. You mean in general, like these decade or these Corona times? Are we
Yeah,
starting
maybe.
that topic?
We can touch on the Corona situation in a moment, but I think
Yeah.
because you have been
Hmm.
said you have been running this place for a little bit more than 3 years now. You are one
Yes.
of the co-founders, and so
Hmm.
why was there this motivation to start this place in the first place for
Yeah.
you?
So for me personally, um, my main motivation was really to share knowledge and to raise awareness, because I've been studying sustainability, and I've always been very engaged in the sustainability scene, or however you want to call it. And I just felt like we need more platforms where we can share all these new insights and new developments, or there is sustainable alternatives available for almost everything today, only people don't know about it because there's no lobby. There is like one of my favorite examples is the menstrual cup, for example, that has existed like since the 70s, but no one knew about it. And then the whatever tampon industry had a bigger budget to advertise, and then that's what everyone went with. And today I'm like, oh my god, like I found out about it 3 years ago. And how could I, it's just sometimes it's absurd that there is so much better solutions are available, but they don't reach the people because there's no lobby, and people are used to their standard in streams of information. And if it never crosses their path, then they will never know. And especially in times where we have access to basically all information, but it's just impossible to filter. What are your sources? Where are you looking for it? And if you don't know anyone who is interested in sustainability, or who is researching these things, who is motivated enough to actually invest time in searching it, or who can invest the time to find things, then you just don't know about it. So that was my main motivation, to really create a platform where people can meet and exchange. Because in my experience, it is, there is a lot of people who maybe think about sustainability, or, they buy organic food and they are a little bit concerned about flying, but then they don't really know how else can they have an influence in this. A lot of people feel very powerless about the, things are how they are, and, you have to go to work and you have to pay the bills. So creating a space where people can inspire each other and exchange knowledge about this seemed very logical to me.
Mm.
So that was my main motivation. I Looking back now, 4 years later, there was also a part of naivety in it, I think, because you probably know, only the fact that we know better doesn't mean that we necessarily act in that way. There is habits, and there is a lot of other aspects that play into our behavioral patterns and so on. So I think it has shifted by now a little bit more into the empowerment aspect. You really help people unfold their potential by having the opportunity to experiment and to create something themselves, and not only be treated as a consumer all the time, who is buying stuff and not being part of the creation process anymore, really in their everyday life.
Mm.
So there was some kind of a shift.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We touched a little bit on the current Corona situation, and we said before, I mean, you are mainly, not only, but I mean, mainly also a physical meeting place, hosting events.
Mhm.
I mean, I can only imagine that, especially in Denmark, the restrictions are quite strict right now. So you have
Yes.
actually canceled all the events. Can
Mhm.
you say how this is affecting you, and how do you deal with this current situation?
Mhm. Yes. Well, I'm I think in the beginning, like when the whole situation came up and the politicians started to announce, we shouldn't do this or that, and events with more than 50 people should be cancelled and so on. Then we organized it like an extraordinary board meeting to discuss, how are we dealing with this, and that was, I think, then 4 days later. And by that point, like, there were 3 more announcements. It was pretty obvious, we don't want to be that one place that is still, spreading the virus, kind of. And but the 4 days until then, I was very much considering, it would be really nice now that everyone's shutting down, that we would be the place where people can still meet and discuss, and maybe if it's only 10 people at a time in a room and they keep 2 meter distance because the space is big enough. But then just before the board meeting, or actually when we started the board meeting, one of our board members, he didn't join. It was a virtual meeting also. And then I called him and he's like, well, I'm actually at home and I have symptoms, and maybe, they weren't testing at that moment, so you don't know. But he has been, I think, 2 days before, and they were like, okay, well, then that makes the decision a bit easier. Like if someone was around who potentially had caught the virus, then we just have to close, at least for that month.
Mm.
And we decided to cancel everything by then. And in that moment, it was a little bit convenient because we didn't have the manpower to administrate all the events at that time. One of our volunteers quit short before, um, so we were kind of in a jam already. Um, so my first thought was, oh, nice, I can empty my calendar and there will be so much time available. And then that didn't happen because at the same time, with a crisis like this, both Martin, the co-founder, and me, we got really excited about the potential of this, because people have to stop, they can't keep running and, not thinking ahead, or so they actually have to sit and reflect about things. So there is a very big potential in this situation. So we were like, okay, we have to do something, we have to make up a new page and, research and blah, 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 blah. So we've been pretty loaded with work since we stopped hosting events. We pushed an update where the hosts can set their events to moved online, so they don't have to cancel. They can host it online like we do now. I think the whole Zoom thing, or I think there's like 3 other apps by now that are very convenient for these group get-togethers. I think it's very important that we understand that the social distancing, like for me, that is totally the wrong term. It should be physical distancing, because that makes sense,
Absolutely.
and that's why we don't infect each other. But social, like we have to be social. We are social beings. We get depressed, and there will be really bad long-term effects of isolating ourselves. And we do have the technology to get together virtually, even though the physical touch is missing. And hopefully, we have a partner or kids or whatever at home, so we can still be physical. But yeah, I think that was a big part, that we gave our members the opportunity to host things online. So our calendar, there's still a few events who are happening, the men's group and the women's circle, and the Extinction Rebellion talk, for example, on Friday will also be online. They will add that to the calendar now. And then, of course, we have lost a bunch of members, which I expected. Of course, not all of our members are ideologists who are there to support us and nothing else. Of course, there's always people who join for their own sake and with this consumer mindset. Okay, I pay 100 kronas and this is what I get. But it's not. I think maybe we had 10 cancellations by now, and then we also say, okay, and like one of them wrote like, yeah, I have to cancel my membership because I'm not going to get to use the space for some time now. So and then Martin replied, well, yeah, neither will we, but if you want anything left to be done after this is over, then you should consider. I mean, of course, we cancel membership and so on, but it's really, I think, important that people keep in mind this is we don't know how temporary, but it is temporary, even if it might be a year or 1.5 years, that we have to support the cultural actors and the initiatives that we want to have around, even now, even if we don't get to benefit from that, maybe directly or physically or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of, because just this morning, just before we had this call, you published actually a manifesto for these times,
Yes.
where there is one point in there exactly saying this. Please reflect on which businesses, which NGOs, which places do we want to support, which ones do we want to have in the future, and which ones
Yes.
give us energy. And
Yes.
can you mention some of the other points, and where can people find this manifesto?
Yes, we put it on like half an hour before this interview. It was good to have some motivation to finally get it out, because I've been working for it a week now, and it's so difficult to, there's so much new information every day. It's really a challenge to select and say, okay, so now it's like coherent enough or whatever, and probably tomorrow it's outdated again. But yes, we published it this morning. It's on our homepage, where we don't have the link. I can maybe share the campaign link in the Facebook event later, or in the description of the video. I don't know if you can do that. But theoretically, since Martin is a programmer who knows about search engine optimization, you could Google think.dk Corona can heal us all. And then
We
maybe
will
you
also
find
publish it on our website,
Okay, cool.
bestforthe.world, and there you can search for think.dk, and
Mhm.
the manifesto is
Yes.
called, as you said, Corona Can Heal Us All, and it's an
Yes.
invitation for reflection. I mean, it's very much in line what we also saw as an opportunity, actually, for this space to emerge. How can
Mhm.
we use this current situation and the current times for reflection, to think about where do
Mhm.
we intentionally want to go, and what systems, what belief systems, what physical places to help us to get there.
Yes. Yes. And I think that I mean, I think all of those points are really important, and it was difficult to limit it to one sentence, because it's it should be digestible to read, and I could probably expand with a whole page on each of the points. But I think the where do we spend our money is really essential. I mean, I read that Amazon employed 100,000 people since this crisis started, because everyone's sitting at home and they're used to buying stuff and they can't go outside, so they order stuff online. And we all know, I think, that Amazon is not necessarily ethical, or I don't know, nice corporation to support. They don't have any good values or anything, and there is a lot of bookstores that do offer online sending, and we need bookstores. I think it's really, really important to have these small shops, small boutiques in the city center, who also have a very high rent, who do not have any turnover right now, to support those. And also artists. I mean, many artists now do like living room concerts where you can join online, which I think is super nice. But there's so many options, and I believe that most people who do have a full-time job, also especially here in Copenhagen, where you have a very high rent, or in most of the big cities, I guess, you kind of run through the week to get to the weekend, and then you try to recover from the week, and then you start running again, and you just don't have time to think about these things. And I know myself with a 3-year-old kid, having committed to not buying new children's clothes, because there is so many clothes for kids out there that are as new, because they grow so fast, and it's pointless to buy new clothes for children. But it takes time to find used clothes. You have to go and pick them up, you have to find them in the app or whatever, and it's just more of an effort. But now people have the time to do that, and also to use it to establish new habits. And I think the manifest mostly aims at not so much like our own community who has awareness about these things, at least that's what I hope, but to those people who are not used to stopping, who are really very much part of running that race, and now are sitting at home and have no idea what to do, and maybe it's difficult also to when you are very used to like a filled schedule and running from one thing to the other, suddenly to sit and like we really want to prevent that a lot of people are sucked into this Netflix vacuum of I don't have anything to do, so I can waste my time basically, but consider it a chance to expand your horizon and think differently about some things.
So the manifesto is called Corona Can Heal Us All. So if you're interested in the other points, take a look there. I think they are really well describing like what can we focus on. It's an invitation to reflect on some of the issues, like we said. Where do I spend my money? Which systems do I want to support?
Mm-hmm.
The last point I want to touch upon, and since you mentioned this already, is you are an NGO. You are very strongly driven by a purpose that is, let's say, not focusing on the financial aspect solely. So you have a very strong purpose that is, I would say, has a high ethical aspiration. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, we live in a system where we have to pay the bills for the rents, and so there is a financial aspect in all of this. And the
Mm-hmm.
way of how you do this is you offer memberships. How then my question basically is here: how can people support you now in these times? How can people
Mm-hmm.
become members of think.dk? What are the options?
Yes. So supporting us, first of all, we always need exposure. That is maybe the easiest way. Like us on Facebook, share our page, share the manifest, sign the manifest. There's an option where you can leave your email and your name, because we really want to. The more people read this and share this on and support this, the more people we can reach, and the more impact it's going to have in a positive way. So that is the one thing. Like, check out our page on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever you are active. And then of course you can sign up as a member on our homepage. And I think I said before, it's 100 kronas a month. You can cancel
Hmm.
anytime. There is no minimum period or whatever. You can donate to us, because of course, since we lose the income from the events, most of the event hosts share half of the income they generate with us to help us pay our rent, and that is the main cost we have to cover, because it is a big space in Copenhagen. It's not very cheap. So we always welcome donations. We have a mobile pay number that is 65601, not too difficult to remember. So donations, but the membership really is our core, how do you say, not instrument, but we really decided for a membership-based model because we wanted to be independent of external funding and investors and all of these things on the long run. So if we have a base of members that can carry us enough so we can cover all the running costs, and that is around 200 members, then we can you know, the community can carry it itself, and we do not have to worry about the rent anymore. We don't have to compromise anything. So sharing, like spreading the word, we don't have any budget for advertising or for marketing. So really online sharing is the biggest help, and joining as a member, I think, takes a minute or so.
Yeah, so all the information you can find at think.dk. It's a very easy way and an easy name to remember, think.dk.
Yes.
I encourage everyone to become a member, support the mission of Think for being an accelerator for holistic change, especially in these times when people can't physically meet. I think with that, I would like to wrap up our talk, Anja. Is there anything you feel like that we haven't addressed and that you would like to share with the world?
I think we covered it really. What I would like to emphasize maybe that you know, this phase that we are in right now, and that started months ago, circa, in Denmark, is really, you know, it's like a fork in the road, where you can, like, it is in our power to really have an influence in which direction this goes in the future. Everything is on hold, and we have proved now that you know, we can make really, really big change happen if the motivation is just big enough. Like, there's no more flying right now, and half a year ago everyone would have said, no, we can't, you know, we can't just, you know, ground all the planes. That's absolutely possible. Oh, suddenly it's possible. But I believe that it's dangerous to you know, sit down and observe right now, because it really takes our influence and our activism to turn this ship into the right direction. Because if we just sit and wait, then, you know, the lobbies and, you know, all the standard decision making ways will go its way, and we will end up with less freedom and with less social support, and we can't let that happen. So I really want to encourage everyone to do their part, and to, you know, share relevant information with their circles, and really, yeah, become active in having an influence in this crisis, because we all have the power to influence this. If it's only, you know, how we spend our money right now, and who we give our money to, and where we click, and what we like, and where we sign up for, really makes a difference in the mass, of course, of people. So yeah, I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah.
Don't just slag around.
Systems change is within reach, actually, and
Yes,
it can be quite simple. It can be done by small steps.
exactly.
So thank you, Anja Müller, from think.dk for this perspective, for
Thank you.
presenting your place. You find all the information at think.dk, and then also on our website, bestforthe.world. And there you can also look for think.dk, and you will find also the recording. So thank you again,
Thank you.
Anja. Pleasure to
Thank
have
you so
you.
much for doing this. Really, really cool. Thanks. Take care. Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.